Teachers of Reddit, have you ever had anyone who would later become well known, and what was that person like? J.K. Rowling used to be a teaching assistant in my school before I was there. This was when she was struggling for work and living in Edinburgh. Apparently when she was asked what her interests were, she would mention in passing that she was trying to write a book. She was pretty shy and mostly kept to herself. Went to middle school with K$her. She was totally normal girl that just liked to sing. Did a number at a talent show that I remember. Was definitely the best singer of the school. Fairly quiet in general and seemed nice. Edward Land Middle School in Brentwood. TN. Here's a video of that talent show. Yow to be. She always struck me as the girl that liked horses and snitched on other students. Every school has at least one horse girl. I used to dream that one of my students might someday become famous, but that hasn't happened yet. A few of my former students are in prison. Though. My mom was a teacher. At lunch, she and the other teachers would read the small town newspaper to see which one of their former students was in jail. Then they would comment on whether that was surprising or not. I knew Chris McLovin in high school. He was just as funny and orky than he was in Superbird. He disappeared senior year. And when I saw him in the office I said, "Chris, where you been?" He said he was doing something big. It blew me away to see him in a preview. Also, I guess he drives a Mercedes around that says McLovin on the plates. Which I think is totally lame. My grandmother was the secretary at a Beverly Hills high school when Nicolas Cage was attending. She said he was always late and often at the principal's office for goofing off. Apparently he dropped out of school for a bit. She also described him as charming in a Ferris Bueller sort of way. Does anyone else have a hard time imagining Nicolas Cage as a teenager? All I can come up with is a 16-year-old with the face of middle-aged Nick Cage. My school advisor went to college with Denzel Washington, and of course he was the best in acting class. Very serious and polite. I attended school with Blake Lively from 7th 12th grade. She was in choir all those years and she's actually a pretty good singer. I have nothing but nice things to say about her. Very sweet, polite, and bubbly girl. I'm really happy to see how far she's come. She deserves it. My dad's ex-wife was Martin Lawrence's teacher when he was younger. I believe around middle school. He was a very disruptive kid in class, so she suggested that he try stand-up. The rest is obviously history. Unfortunately she has passed away recently, and when she was really sick Martin was on a late night talk show and gave her a shout out wishing her all the best and thanking her. At least some people never forget where they come from. I can verify this. She was the art teacher in my high school. Totally awesome person. The only teacher I went back to visit. My friends and I would eat lunch in her room every day. And at least once a week a former student would visit. They ranged in age from 20 to 50 and always thanked her for being a positive influence on them. We all miss her a whole hell of a lot. I went to high school with Wiz Khalifa. He was pretty much as expected. A pothead and surprisingly a nerd. So that movie with Snoop Dogg was like a biopic. Documentary actually. There was a science teacher in my high school who taught Adam Sandler. She was horrible, and one of his first recognized songs, "I Hate Mrs. K," is all about her. Edit, tell the locals. I graduated from Merrimack, where she retired. Not Central. English teacher had to pack for some level of English. Apparently not that bad and good writer. Edit, wow, highest upvoted comment. And for those who were wondering, this was his teacher at BSA. There are a lot of stories out there about how misunderstood Tupac is. He wasn't a bad guy like some of his songs would have you believe. He was smart. And the dude took ballet. Lord was her English teacher 2 years ago. She was incredibly bright and wrote one of the best short stories I've ever read. She was 14 at the time. Jason Momoa and I were on the same hockey team in junior high. I still contend that I was much better than him. And therefore the rightful ruler of the Dothraki. The Dothraki follow only hockey skills. Khaleesi. It is known. My great-grandmother taught high school English to the kid who would later become famous as Lemony Snicket. And hated him. She insisted that he couldn't write for crap and was miffed every time he was brought up. I live where Catherine Heigl grew up. My old Spanish teacher had taught her. Never paid attention. She just sat there putting her makeup on and chatting all class. She dropped out after her sophomore year. This is probably the least surprising answer I've seen yet. I very rarely hear good things about Heigl. Apparently very tough to work with. She filmed a movie with Ashton Kutcher in a neighborhood where I was living. Ashton would come out and play basketball with the neighborhood kids and sign autographs. Everybody said that Catherine would just stand away from everybody else smoking and wouldn't talk to anybody. Sounds like she has earned this reputation. My mother had Tommy Morello in her English class. Loved him. Absolutely loved him. One of our neighbors taught Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine back when he was in high school. He was a good kid. And didn't really rage against the establishment according to what I remember him saying. Granted. That may be due to the fact his mother was also a teacher there. And he would have probably been on her sheet list if he pissed off her co-workers. Mary Morello is not the type of person you want to piss off. I remember my dad telling me stories about how he was terrified of her. But in awe of her tenacity. Apparently he cracked a smart-ass joke the first day of class. And she gave him a look that ran ice through his veins. I have never in 27 plus years seen my dad afraid of confronting another human being. The fact that she was pretty much in a head-to-head battle with Tupac in the 80s over censorship in music, along with her human rights work, gives you an idea of how awesome terrifying she could be all at once. It is only natural that her son turned out to be so awesome. Not me. But my history teacher taught both Biggie Smalls and Jay-Z in middle school. She said Jay-Z was pretty shy and well behaved. But she hated Biggie because he was obnoxious and flipped. Edit, a word. I was a preschool teacher to the little girl who recently went viral for doing sign language for her kindergarten Christmas concert. She is really funny. Strong-minded and stubborn. And obviously super cute. Love her to death despite all of the challenges. Not me. But my girlfriend's mother was a PE teacher in a San Antonio elementary school where she had Shaquille O'Neal in one of her classes. She noted that he always wanted to be an NBA player. But everyone told him that he would never be good enough. Even all the way through high school. I was taught by Larry Pages, Google co-founder, English teacher at East Lansing High School, Michigan when I lived in the States. Best compliment I received: "You remind me of a student I taught who went on to create Google." I kind of stopped programming to pursue a career in medicine. I was pretty good when I was young. I'll never know what could have been. Not me. But my mother. She has passed away and can't tell this story. So I will. My mother was a teacher for 40 years before she passed away. Mainly she taught elementary school and some special classes. Well, one year she was teaching 3rd grade in Terrell, Texas, and she had a student named Derek Bishop. He was a wild child. Always running around and making the class laugh. But he was also a sweetheart and a caring person like his grandmother who raised him. Mother had many sit-downs with Eric and his grandmother and ultimately helped him not only pass 3rd grade, but also to channel his energy into appropriate times and places. Eric later became Jamie Foxx, the comedian and actor. I still have the decorative bowl that he gave my mother and the letter he wrote her once he made it to Hollywood. TLDR, my mom taught Jamie Foxx in the 3rd grade and we still have things he gave her. Went to high school with Megan Fox for about a year or so. I didn't really know her. But we hung about the same people. She was pretty typical, I guess. Nose a bit up in the air. But no more so than the other girls in that somewhat popular clique at the time. We always heard stories about her mom being kinda nuts and taking her all over the place for auditions. Which is why she missed most of our year. I guess that paid off though. I went to high school with Ryan and Evan Locht. Once in biology class, Evan Locht leaned over and asked me how to spell cell. I kinda wish I were kidding. Nice kids though. regardless of IQ. I went to grade school with the Jones boys. Arthur is a Super Bowl champion Raven. Chandler plays defense for the New England Patriots. And John is the UFC's reigning light heavyweight champion. Good genes and family. Oh man. I went to rival high school, Southside in Elmira, and remember John and Arthur from both football and wrestling. I played football against them but never personally wrestled them, different weights. A friend of mine did wrestle John and actually beat him once. The big thing I remember about them is that everyone in the local wrestling community always knew they were beasts. But were the most down to earth, personable, and disciplined guys. Elijah Wood is from my town. People that know him really like him. Unlike Ashton Kutcher, who returns all the time. I have never once seen or heard of Elijah coming back home, although it's possible. He just stays out of the spotlight when he's back. I was shooting a short film a few years ago and stopped inside an ice cream store to ask if I could shoot in there. The owner, a man, obliged and started talking about his experiences on set. I asked if he used to act. And he said something along the lines of no. I just used to visit the sets sometimes. My favorite was going to New Zealand. Immediately it clicked and I asked if he knew Elijah Wood, who he told me was his son. So I'm happy to say I directed Elijah Wood's father. His cameo as ice cream giver was snubbed by all the major award shows. Edit, for those that have been asking. This was a school project from my yesteryears. So I will try to dig it off of some old hard drive and post it online. The store itself is in Cedar Rapids, IA in Little Bohemia. It was on 16th Ave SW and would love to know if it's still there. Leonardo DiCaprio didn't get along well with the other kids. Came in during lunch to eat with the teachers and faculty. Did this have anything to do with the fact that he was pretending to be a substitute teacher? I'm pretty sure they were just pissed he got to become a pilot. Dean Norris, who played Hank on Breaking Bad, went to a local high school in my town and everyone always says that he was a nice and confident kid. An English teacher at San Jose State University in Cali is Bass Nectar's, a famous DJ's, mom. She has a Bass Nectar wallpaper on her computer and when kids ask her about it she just goes, "Oh, that's my son," gets 0 faces every time. My high school drama teacher taught Kevin of Backstreet Boys. She said she always thought he'd wind up famous. She talked about him all the time. My swim coach science teacher taught Lindsay Lohan in 7th grade. He said she was actually the sweetest, funniest kid. When she was hosting SNL for the first time she called him and said she was going to tell a whole story about her incredibly brave gay science teacher. He was not gay, not that there's anything wrong with it if he was. She said she would tug on her ear right before she did it too, so she kept messing with him but putting her hands by her ear. One of my professors taught Lady Gaga at NYW. She said Gaga used to stand up after class every day and tell everyone to come out and see the gigs she was playing in. Lady Gaga wasn't doing very well in the class. So my professor asked to meet with her. She told her that maybe if she focused more on her schoolwork and less on her gigs, she'd be more successful. Awkward. My sister was good friends with the rapper Machine Gun Kelly in high school. He was apparently really nice back then. But everything he raps about is bullshit. He didn't grow up in East Cleveland. East Cleveland is one of the most dangerous cities in the country. We live in Shaker Heights, which is home to the Cavs GM, doctors, and a lot of old rich people. Our schools are pretty freaking good. He didn't come up from the streets. I delivered newspapers to his house. Homeboy drove a beige PT Cruiser. Here's the best part, my best friend's sister is Les. MGK was the last guy she dated before she swore off the P. TLDR, rapper Machine Gun Kelly is your average suburban white kid. Not a hardcore rapper from the streets. My high school was right across the street from the middle school Demi Lovato went to. All my friends knew her and all my friends hated her. You know that story she told about being constantly bullied in middle school? Yeah, that's a lie. She was the bully. Apparently she was full of herself. Tore people down to make herself feel better. And was just a rich in general. Whenever people called her out on her attitude, she would say they don't matter because she was going to move to Hollywood and become famous. Who knew it would actually turn out that way?